This is E&P Reports, a vodcast from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcast, digital, and all forms of news publishing.
And warm greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. As always, we kick off boring our audience by begging those that are listening on a podcast platform to follow. Those that choose to watch the video version on our YouTube channel, please subscribe. Either way, when you do so, you'll get an update each and every time we upload this weekly vodcast series we dedicate to news publishing. We call it E&P Reports. Today, we're diving into an issue that's at the crossroads of media accountability, regulatory enforcement, and political influence. And we've got two amazing industry veterans to break it down for us. Preston Padden and Al Sikes are two of the most influential figures in the history of American broadcasting and telecommunications. Preston Padden is a veteran media executive with decades of experience shaping the television and cable industries. He's held two top leadership roles at major companies, including serving as president of ABC Television, senior executive at News Corp and Fox Broadcasting, and as the head of the Association of Broadcasters advocacy efforts in Washington. Al Sikes, a former chairman of the FCC, played a pivotal role in shaping modern media policy, overseeing regulatory frameworks that guided the evolution of broadcasting, telecommunications, and cable with deep expertise in both the business and regulatory sides of media. Greetings, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Both Preston and Al are leaders of the Media and Democracy Project, MAD, and they've been at the forefront of urging the FCC to scrutinize Fox's Philadelphia TV affiliate, WTXF, over concerns about its commitment to serving the public interest. Now, as seasoned media executives and policymakers, they argue that Fox's role in spreading misinformation should disqualify it from holding public broadcast licenses. Their advocacy has sparked national debate about media responsibility and FCC oversight in preserving democracy. Before we dive into it today, it's amazing the timing on this, because in the last few days, I published a very provocative editorial. Both of you have had a chance to read it, and in it, I call on Lachlan Murdoch to make a defining choice, one that echoes back to the days of, William Paley allowing Murrow and Fred Friendly to take on McCarthy. The Wall Street Journal now, if you're reading what's going on under the Murdoch empire, is starting to percolate, is starting to bring truth to power, as we like to say, our Madisonian mission of this amazing industry we're in. Well, I'm asking them in this editorial to stop, how should I say it, giving cover. Because Fox News is a credible news source to a very large part of the far-right audience. We can't ignore that. How did this editorial impact you? Let me start with you, Preston. What did you think? Do you think there's a chance that maybe now that the Wall Street Journal is starting to crack a little, that maybe we get some, truth to power out of Fox that will make some of those, how should I say, Republican leaders be less fearful in speaking out?
I'm very sorry to tell you, I think the odds of that are below zero.
Okay.
Because Lachlan and Rupert Murdoch already made their choice. If you look at the emails in the Dominion voting machines judicial decision, it's all right there. They accurately predicted that Biden was going to win Arizona. They were the first network to do so. And they lost about a third of their audience overnight when they did that. And you can see the email traffic between the Murdochs, Suzanne Scott, the president of Fox News, the talent, all going crazy about the fear of losing their audience. And they have a debate that we can watch in their emails.
It's true,
do they
yes.
tell the truth and risk losing more audience, or do they decide to continue to lie to the American people to pump up their profits?
Just as an aside, we did have Chris Stirewalt on this program, who echoed, if not parroted, everything you said. Al, do you concur with what Preston just said?
Yeah, I do not have the history with Fox that Preston has, so I'm not the deep study that Preston is with regard to Fox News. I do think there are some credible news people on Fox News. I think the Bret Baier show is, a reasonably credible show, but I certainly wouldn't disagree with what Preston said. And in a broader sense, it's almost a Lewis Carroll moment, where Alice falls down a rabbit hole, and you find a certain, down is up and up is down, and so as they get into their later night shows, which I don't watch generally, that's the kind of world that we are brought into.
Well, thank you for your input on that. At the timing, I just could not resist getting both of you gentlemen to make a comment on the record for where we stand at E&P. But our discussion is going to go a little deeper now. We're going to get into the FCC's latest very controversial actions and what they really mean for the future of media regulation, Murdoch, and political influence in broadcasting. We'll get to that on the backside of this message.
This episode of E&P Reports is exclusively sponsored by Blocks Digital, formerly Town News. Even though the name has changed, their commitment to the media industry is as strong as ever. Blocks Digital is now even better positioned to deliver integrated solutions like content management, audience development, advertising revenue, video management, and more. Join the over 2,000 news publishers worldwide that power their ongoing digital transformation with Blocks Digital, serving over 141 million monthly users who view over 6.5 billion pages of content each year. You can trust Blocks Digital to empower you, to connect you at scale with the community you need to reach. Blocks Digital, formerly Town News, now reimagined to help meet the news publishing challenges of tomorrow and beyond. Learn more at blocksdigital.com.
All right, gentlemen, we're at a critical moment for both media regulation and integrity in journalism. The FCC under Chairman Carr has revived complaints against ABC, CBS, and NBC while ignoring a similar challenge against a Fox-owned station. Many see this as selective enforcement, reinforcing concerns about weaponization of the FCC. So let's start with this. What is your reaction to this selective reinstatement of cases? What does it tell us about the current state of media regulation? Al, let's start with you, since you're a former FCC chair.
Well, you might have noted, and I apologize for your audience, the background of my ringtone, Dave Brubeck's Take 5 to be specific. And
by the way, I was an alto sax player that was written by Paul Desmond. But go ahead, sir.
I know it was, and he was, of course, quite extraordinary. Anyway, my general take is that we have entered a moment when the censor is in the White House and has his delegated operational guy at the FCC. And that's a perilous moment, a moment that shouldn't exist. And in fact, I've heard from many of the former FCC chairs who, I guess, prefer not to speak out, but who have said to me, "Thank you for speaking out." And the free speech, how do I want to put it, gestalt was bipartisan. I mean, it was not a matter of, well, who appointed you? Was it a Republican or a Democrat? And so I think Carr, unfortunately, and I do not know him, has acted as he is motivated to be supportive of the president.
All right, Preston, you've been deeply involved in challenging Fox's license renewal based on its character fitness. And yet Chairman Carr has dismissed MAD, the Media and Democracy Project's petition claiming that Fox challenge involves cable content, while the other case involves Spectrum broadcast. I mean, that's where the line is, am I right? Preston, they're basically, you got a chair saying, okay, this is happening on cable, which we don't care about. This is happening over the airways, which we do care about, where you and I both know that most of us are streaming all this content, correct? It doesn't matter whether there's a transmitter in its legacy heritage. Is this a legitimate distinction, or is Carr bending precedent to protect Murdoch, in your opinion?
I believe he's bending precedent to protect Murdoch upon orders of President Trump. The Communications Act very clearly says that the FCC has to evaluate the character of an applicant for a broadcast license. And there are plenty of past FCC cases where, in making that evaluation, the FCC looks at the applicant's character and activity at the TV or radio station in question and in other aspects of the applicant's life. So what we have here is the first ever applicant for a broadcast license, the Philadelphia TV station, first ever applicant, recently found guilty by a court of law of knowingly and intentionally and repeatedly lying to the American people about a presidential election. And if that does not trigger a hearing under the character requirement, then I don't know what would.
So it doesn't matter. Okay, go ahead, Al. You were going to chime in.
I'm just going to reinforce what Preston said. Not only the fact of lying, but lying in a grave moment, and that's the constitutional framework within which we transfer power. So this was not about whether Kamala Harris's interview was inappropriately edited or not. This is about the transfer of power, and of course the implications and the consequences of that. So this is a grave moment, and the thought that the commission as a whole, and when I was chairing the commission, I had commissioners that pushed back. It was not all harmony. We didn't open the morning singing the same song. So the thought that the Carr can be sort of a unitary chairman without affecting the broad framework of the FCC is just nonsense.
All right, on another note, Al, you've been quoted that the First Amendment should be fundamental in both the Constitution and FCC's actions, that they're hand in hand. Do you believe Carr's actions are in direct conflict with First Amendment principles? This is a big one.
They are. It clearly, his actions have caused censorship to become a part of this administration. And so, yes, in answer to your question.
Preston, given the FCC's role in ensuring media fairness and trust, what is the risk the commission becomes a tool for political enforcement rather than objective regulation? What happens to our that wonderful document written 200 and some odd years ago by these imperfect men that we should be pledging allegiance to, if you follow the map of our democracy? What happens?
I think it's not only a risk that the FCC becomes a vehicle for political vengeance. We're there. I mean, Trump has ordered Carr to investigate taking away the licenses of ABC because Trump didn't like the questions the ABC anchors asked him in the presidential debate. That's never happened in our country before. It's not a future risk. We are there.
Not to mention that media is getting hit with lawsuits, one after another, to the point where places like the Des Moines Register have to decide, do they want to go into litigation or just back off and allow the Trump, this is my editorial here, allow the Trump administration to dictate editorial content, right? It's where we're at.
This is of course the two-person game Trump complains, Carr opens some sort of investigation. Trump sues, Carr opens some sort of investigation. And all of this in the face of a legacy media that is generally not doing very well economically. And so, you if you're in any of these businesses, radio, TV, newspapers, etc., you do not have a lot of surplus cash to be hiring lawyers to litigate. And then when you get into the conglomerate situation where Paramount, for example, would like to buy Skydance, and that's got to go through a regulatory framework, well, again, you're faced with the economics of your very existence. And it is a perilous time for the media, and it's made way more perilous by what the White House is doing.
All right. We're going to have to wrap this up only because we have to. I mean, I wish we could chat for hours, but our audience tends to want things like, in small 20-minute bites. So I need now for you to become prognosticators, or at least advocates to our audience. You now have an audience of thousands of news media executives. What should we do? What steps should be taken, not just by you and MAD, but by the media industry in general, to enforce fairness and what can we do? We'll start with you, Preston. Go ahead, pontificate away. Give us that, elevator pitch.
I would just, if I was a news person, an editor or reporter, I would be advocating to my management as strongly as I can not to cave to Trump and Carr, to fight the good fight, even if it costs money, because otherwise we're going to lose. I mean, our founding fathers created the media as a check, a free media, as a check on the power of government. And Trump and Carr are flipping that on its head, where government is a check on the power of a free media.
All right, Al, similar question to you. Pontificate away. Tell our audience what we can do today to help have fairness across all areas of regulation.
Well, I'm not sure how the audience speaks to the publisher in this case, or to the broadcaster, or the newscaster, or whoever. That's more complicated, although social media does provide an avenue for them to do that. The insistence by the media, and preferably the insistence by the audience, is stand your ground. Yes. Stand your ground. And I would also suggest to the United States Senate, specifically to Senator Thune, that since Carr did not have to go through a confirmation hearing because he was already on the commission, and I can recall the confirmation hearing that I went through, and I can recall, the Congress represented by John Dingell and Fritz Hollings, who chaired the two Commerce committees. They were on my case all the time. And so there's a congressional responsibility here, and the first step that should be taken is Thune should tell the chair of the Senate Commerce Committee to conduct a hearing with Carr sitting on the other side of the table.
To our listeners and viewers, if you want to stay on top of this ongoing debate and about media responsibility and FCC oversight and the future of broadcast journalism, please stay with us. This is not the end of this dialogue. In my opinion, this is just the beginning of a very interesting time for the current administration. Preston Padden, former senior executive at Fox, longtime advocate for media accountability, and Al Sikes, former FCC chairman under President George H.W. Bush. Thank you both for your time and insights today. This conversation, as I said, is far from over, and we appreciate you devoting your time to our audience. Thank you.
Thanks very much.